Hi, thank you for joining me. How many times in your life have you tried to avoid that feeling of disappointment? Because the ego doesn't like feeling disappointed. The ego likes to feel good all the time. And we do need an ego. We obviously need an ego so that we can protect ourselves. It's a warning so that we don't go and do anything that's going to harm us. So the ego is important. But when you start living totally from the ego and ignoring the higher self, you'll be trying to make decisions that make you feel good. So, by looking at life through the ego, let's say you are going to look for a new job, but then you convinced yourself that maybe you're not good enough for that job, or maybe they're not going to like you, and you don't want to apply for that job just in case you're going to feel disappointed. Rather than seeing it from the higher self and going, well, I'm just going to go and try. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's not meant for me. Just looking at it like that, looking at it more like don't get so hard on yourself and trying to avoid feelings, because all feelings are important. They're not good and bad feelings. They're all just feelings. But we somehow think, the ego thinks that disappointment is then we're going to have to face something about ourselves, like I'm not good enough, or I was rejected, or there is something going to come up with that ego feeling that that's what you're trying to avoid. When you've already been through that many, many times before, how many times in your life have you been disappointed? And you got through it because your higher self knew that that wasn't right for you. There's something still there that goes, I know that wasn't right for me, but I don't want to admit it. The ego will say, I don't want to admit that that wasn't right for me because I convinced myself it was right for me. Let's say you wanted to go into a relationship with someone and you totally felt like they were the right person for you. You had that connection and you felt you were soulmates. It was a deep love and it didn't work out. You ended up, something went wrong and you went your separate ways. The ego gets hurt. The ego gets heartbroken. The ego is disappointed. But the higher self can see ahead. The higher self knows that the direction that you're going, when you're in alignment with yourself, the direction you're going, that person can't keep up with you. You're going to grow and expand and head in this certain direction, and that other person won't have the capability of journeying with you. So if you did go in that direction with them, you would be held down. You would be held in this place that wasn't to your highest good. And that you can make that choice. You can make a choice to go down a path and take the long way around. That's totally up to your free will. But your higher self will always know that that's not what is in alignment with you. And eventually you're either going to work it out in the beginning where the relationship never really takes off, or you're going to work it out after you've been with someone for 10 or 20 years and realize, I could have been doing something totally different. But I have learned. I don't think it's good to look back on regret and say, I should have done this and I should have done that. It's more important to look and say, what did I learn from this? What did it show me about myself? What did it show me that I do want in my life? What does it show me that I don't want in my life? What areas were I weak and it has helped to strengthen them? Did I allow people to boss me around when I didn't have the ability to speak up, and it was teaching me to find that courage? Have I needed to learn to step out of my comfort zone? Really look at what it is that you've been taught from the situation, rather than looking at the ego side that's going to sit there and say, I'm going to be disappointed again. If I go and do this, I'll only get disappointed. So what? It's just, disappointment is just an emotion. It doesn't have to stop your life. Disappointment doesn't make your life end today. It's just a feeling that your ego doesn't like. So what if you went and tried something and it didn't work out, and then you went, oh, well, it didn't work out. I feel disappointed. That's it. You can just say to yourself, I just feel disappointed because I thought I needed that. I thought that was what was right for me. But maybe it wasn't. Because, I know our ego just tries so hard to avoid those kind of emotions, but we all have them, and they are part of what we're meant to have them. If we weren't meant to have them, they wouldn't be an emotion, would they? There would be no such thing as disappointment if we weren't meant to have that. So I think, I hear so many people say, I'm not going to go for that job because I don't want to be disappointed, or I'm not going to go with that relationship. I'm not going to put myself out there and try and meet somebody new because I don't want to be disappointed. And are you stopping yourself from living by doing that? Are you avoiding also the lessons that your higher self is trying to give you? What if you just stepped out of your comfort zone and had a go and took the blessing in what it was showing you? See the blessing of, wow, this is actually, by me taking action, I've just stepped out of my comfort zone. I've been brave. I've been confident. Does that not make you feel a lot prouder for yourself to do that, rather than, how do you feel when you keep avoiding things? Do you then get a bit mad at yourself for not being brave? Because we all do that self-judgment where we make a decision and then we go inside to judge ourselves, as in, am I making the right decision? Am I making the right decision? Am I doing something wrong here? Am I going to affect somebody else? And all that overthinking starts happening again. I've kind of myself now, I'll just go and try anything, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I used to, I really wanted the outcome. I put so much expectation on an outcome, and when that outcome didn't come, I felt like I was doing something wrong. And it was because my ego really, really thought that was the right direction for me. My higher self knew that if I got that direction, it was actually going to be more damaging to me than it was going to be helpful. So by now just going with what I feel like is alignment, just saying, okay, I'm going to try. If it doesn't work out, I just understand that's not right for me, and not get upset about it. Not get upset and not get disappointed. Just say that's not right for me. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction. Thank myself for helping me to avoid a situation that was not going to be right for me. Even though my ego totally thought that was going to be right for me, my ego got excited because something good was going to happen. My higher self knows differently. It just recently this actually happened with me, where I actually got one of those lessons where I could have been really disappointed about it, or I could have seen, wow, that really worked in my favor. I was on the TV show, The One, and twice I was interviewed on. I got on the show a couple of times, and once I was interviewed by Andy about the alien blue people. And then after that show had finished, an email came out saying that they weren't going to air that show. And so then I got to go on the show again, and I also got chosen to talk about my near-death experience. And that interview that I had was cut from the show. It wasn't aired. Or everything else that would be, all the other people that were spoken to, all their pieces were aired, but my piece was cut. So I had actually given up, hours of my day to go on this show because I really wanted to talk about my near-death experience and be part of a fun show, and it didn't air. So at the time, was I going to be disappointed that didn't happen the way I wanted it to? So I sat and thought about it, and I just thought to myself, no, obviously that was not the right platform. It was a funny, light-hearted show, and the people that kind of watch a show like that are not really going to be interested in something serious like a near-death. And then I ended up being on Jeff Mara's podcast, and now I'm going on a few other podcasts, and I'm now more in the circle and flow of people that are interested in this kind of subject, and they're not going to ridicule it, and it's fascinating to them. Had I been on that other show and it was aired to the public, it may have had a totally different effect on what I was talking about, and people may have laughed at it or thought it was a joke. Whereas, as I've been pointed in a better direction with more mature people who are more intelligent to understand this kind of topic, it flows a lot better, and then I get to have the opportunity to share these experiences. So you see how if I had have sat there and got really disappointed about that, rather than seeing, oh, that just was not right, the whole thing just was not right, and there was something else that was a lot better. So if you can look at your situations in that way, where you feel like it's not working out for you, you can't make it happen, and rather than getting all disappointed and upset in that scenario, understand that there is something better down the track. You just have to wait for the right time. You just have to be patient, and what you're going through now and what you're learning now is for later on. I've seen people like throughout their careers that have gone from job to job to job to job to job, and then finally they get in their 50s, even their 60s, and they're finally doing something they wanted to do. And they can realize they couldn't do that in their 20s. They had to go through all those different jobs to have all the skills and ability to be able to do the job in their 50s and 60s. It was all leading up to that. It's like anybody that you don't, very, very rarely, unless you're like an Instagram or a YouTube sensation, and then they don't always last anyway. Most people that are very proficient in their work have had years of learning and training and going through their own growth, like going through their own courageousness and different things about their personality that they've tried to conquer. They've had years and years of building on that to actually get to where they want to be. It's very rare that there's just this overnight where you can suddenly do something. So instead of looking at what you're about to do as I'm scared to do it because it might be disappointment, go into it with the attitude of, what am I going to learn about myself here? What am I going to discover about myself here? How am I going to help that other person discover something about themselves? Go into it with more of a experience that is needed. And if it works out, then it was right for you. And if it doesn't work out, there's something better coming along. Rather than sitting in that space of disappointment, because that feels like you're going to miss out on life. So yeah, I've been hearing a lot lately. Just lately, there's in the readings and people contacting me, there seems to be a lot of the word disappointment. I'm disappointed that this isn't going to happen for me, and I'm disappointed that's not going to happen. I'm disappointed that people won't listen to me. And if you can get out of that feeling of disappointment and get into that feeling of, what's it showing me about myself, and where's it taking me? Like, what's next? It's got to be something better for me, because all that other stuff didn't work. So there's got to be something better waiting for me. And go back to trusting into your higher self, because it does not lead you astray. It's always giving you what you need. So I hope everyone has a lovely day. Feel positive, feel optimistic, and just acknowledge disappointment, but it's okay. It's just disappointment. It's just another emotion like all the rest. Thank you so much for listening to me.